Hello MotoGP enthusiasts. Welcome back to ZNGP Today. In a long-form season review posted on his official channels, Ducati General Manager Gigi Dall'Igna reflected on an extraordinary 2025 for the factory and satellite efforts. From historic statistical dominance to human comebacks, Dall'Igna touched on every corner of the garage, praising champions, diagnosing setbacks, and pointing to the young riders who will shape Ducati's future. Marc Márquez has revealed a private conversation that changed the dynamic between him and his brother Alex during the 2025 MotoGP season. After a tense on-track battle at the Thai Grand Prix, the two Marquez brothers agreed on how to race one another, a decision Marc says helped shape a historic year for both. Don't forget to click subscribe button and the bell icon for MotoGP news update. Dall'Igna began his review by laying out the raw figures that, he says, tell the story of Ducati's season. Across riders, teams, and constructors, Ducati's results were relentless. An unprecedented blend of sprint and race victories, a staggering constructors' margin, and a podium streak that underlined the brand's depth. He framed these results not merely as trophies, but as a reflection of an organizational philosophy, one that combines engineering excellence, rider talent, and relentless operational execution at every track. Over the course of the year, Ducati didn't just win races. It controlled weekends, often from qualifying through to the final lap, and used that control to create buffer after buffer in both points and momentum for the entire program. The statistics Dall'Igna listed are impressive on paper, but he also stressed they are evidence of processes that function at scale: development, simulation, pit decisions, and rider support, all contributing to a season that many teams can only aspire to replicate. An extraordinary season for us, a fourth consecutive riders' title with 3 different champions, a 6th consecutive constructors' title, 17 Grand Prix wins out of 22, 12 poles, 19 sprints, and a record streak of 88 consecutive podiums with at least one Ducati. Dall'Igna's point was clear: these numbers validate a culture. He repeatedly returned to the idea that consistent excellence requires institutional stability, from the factory floor to the pit wall, and that Ducati's 2025 results are the payoff of long-term investments in people and technology. The centerpiece of Dall'Igna's review was Marc Márquez. Beyond cataloging Márquez's astonishing points tally and win record, Dall'Igna spent time unpacking the narrative of comeback, adaptation, and relentless competitive spirit. According to him, Márquez's season combined ferocity on the track with humility off it. A rider who refused to accept limitations, who rebuilt confidence through incremental improvements, and who then translated that regained form into statistical domination. Dall'Igna emphasized how rare it is to see a rider combine sprint and race success at such scale, and how Márquez's presence changed the dynamics of every event, forcing rivals to rethink strategies and elevating the performance bar for his own teammates. The general manager also drew attention to Márquez's role as a standard-bearer for younger teammates and satellite riders, whose own progress was, in part, spurred on by training and data sharing within the Ducati fold. Marc's sensational championship: 545 points, 11 GPs, 8 poles, and 14 sprints with 10 1-2 finishes. He is the first Ducati rider to achieve 15 consecutive victories across sprints and Grand Prix, and the first to finish a season with more than 10 wins in both formats. Dall'Igna framed those milestones as both individual triumph and organizational vindication. Márquez's achievements validated Ducati's development direction and their decision-making regarding rider support, bike characteristics, and team integration. Turning to Bagnaia, Dall'Igna offered a sober assessment. Where Márquez's season was a crescendo, Bagnaia's year was interrupted repeatedly by incidents and bad timing. The general manager was careful to separate form from fortune. Bagnaia's raw speed and racercraft were never in doubt, but a sequence of DNFs, mechanical issues, and ill-timed incidents robbed him of a championship campaign that, on outright pace, might have looked very different. Dall'Igna underscored the psychological and tactical costs of such a run, how an unlucky streak can sap confidence, force defensive strategies, and complicate team choices on setup and development. He also stressed Ducati's responsibility to support a rider through rough patches, using data, targeted testing, and mental conditioning so that talent is not squandered by circumstance. For Dall'Igna, Bagnaya's season is a reminder that motorsport is as much about managing adversity as it is about extracting speed. A very unlucky Pecco. He hasn't achieved everything he could have, especially in the final part of the championship. If you add bad luck, everything becomes much more difficult. Rather than a critique, this was framed as a call to action, an organizational lesson to be converted into improvements ahead of the unknowns expected in 2026. Dall'Igna devoted an entire segment to the wider Ducati ecosystem, the satellite teams, rookies, and stand-ins whose performances rounded out the 2025 narrative. He praised Marc Márquez's rapid maturation into a genuine podium threat and position that progress as evidence that Ducati's factory machinery and data support can accelerate careers. Fabio Di Giannantonio's late-season momentum and Fermin Aldeguer's impressive debut results were highlighted as signs that the brand's scouting and development programs are paying off. Even Nicolo Bulega's role, stepping in towards the end of the season and contributing meaningfully in tests, was described as strategically important, not just opportunistic. Dall'Igna's message was institutional. Success depends on layers of talent, and Ducati's depth across classes and teams creates a virtuous loop where young riders learn quickly and the factory benefits from multiple performance inputs. Marc Márquez has made a great leap forward, establishing himself as one of the absolute protagonists and earning the factory bike for next season. The general manager used these examples to argue that Ducati's future is secure, not because of a single star, but because of a pipeline that produces capable, race-ready riders who can step into competitive seats and contribute immediately. Dall'Igna closed by tempering celebration with preparation. He reiterated that success must be analyzed and distilled into improvements, especially with regulatory and technical unknowns looming for the next season. The overarching message combined pride in what Ducati achieved in 2025 with humility about the work still required, continued bike development, attention to rider well-being, and strengthening the areas revealed as vulnerable by this year's campaign. For fans, the takeaway is clear. Ducati's 2025 chapter was historic, but the brand is already planning how to turn this landmark year into a foundation for sustained excellence. As Ducati transitions from one dominant year into the next, Dall'Igna's reflections read as both a celebration of achievement and a blueprint, statistical proof points paired with strategic commitments, aimed at ensuring the factory's competitiveness remains robust as MotoGP evolves. The opening round in Thailand wasn't just notable for early season form. It was the scene of a wheel-to-wheel encounter that made Marc realize Alex would be a serious championship contender. Mid-race, championship stakes collided with family ties. Marc found himself calculating overtakes while aware that any mistake could have consequences far beyond the race result. The incident itself, a tactical concession to manage tire legality and pressure, highlighted both riders' awareness of the fine margins that decide modern MotoGP. It was that intensity on track which prompted Marc to seek out a private conversation after the checkered flag, not to mute competition, but to define the rules of engagement between brothers when stakes were high. I already understood after the Thailand race that Marquez will be super fast during all the season. That admission, coming straight after a heated duel, set the tone for a year where sibling rivalry would be both fierce and respectful. Back at home, away from cameras and the adrenaline of the race, Marc said he wanted to be blunt and human about the risks their rivalry could create. He explained that the discussion focused on preserving their relationship while allowing honest competition on track. The exchange wasn't about limiting performance or issuing instructions. It was about mutual recognition of what's at stake when two brothers fight at the front of the grid. Marc framed the choice as simple. They could let rivalry become personal, or they could stay close and accept that racing sometimes produces incidents, but always offers another day to make amends. That handshake after the talk was the symbolic reset, a pact to race hard but to protect what matters off the track. Then, when I arrived at home, I said we cannot compete like this. The phrase underlined how seriously Marc saw the potential fallout, and how quickly he moved to protect both family ties and sporting integrity. Marc described the post-race handshake as more than a photo opportunity. It was the start of a season where brotherly respect became an ingredient in on-track battles. Instead of building tension, both riders fostered cooperation, sharing data, helping with setup advice, and offering space when necessary during dicey moments. That collaborative approach allowed each to push limits without fracturing family bonds. On the racetrack, it didn't translate to limp racing. Both Marquez riders still attacked fiercely, but it meant that when things went wrong, there was a pre-existing agreement to accept the vagaries of racing and move forward. For Marc, the decision to prioritize relationship over grudges was strategic as much as emotional. A family united remains a force on and off the circuits. We had two options: fight and create some tension between me and Alex, or be closer than ever. Choosing closeness, Marc believes, allowed both riders to excel without collateral damage to their relationship. The consequences of that conversation echoed across the calendar. Marc would go on to win the 2025 title, while Alex enjoyed the best season of his Premier Class career. Multiple Grand Prix victories, sprint success, and a career-high second in the championship. Marc credits part of that mutual success to the maturity both displayed after Thailand, and understanding that intense rivalry can coexist with mutual support. Beyond podiums and points, the narrative became one of two brothers elevating each other, through internal competition, shared experience, and a pact to never let family fall victim to the heat of the moment. For fans and pundits, the image of two brothers racing at the front yet choosing empathy when it mattered has become one of the season's defining stories. Both of us, we chose to be closer than ever, but it was not something we talked, it was like a feeling. That unspoken agreement, Marc suggests, helped the Marquez family write one of MotoGP's most compelling chapters. Marc Márquez's candid recollection shows that modern MotoGP is about much more than lap times. It's about judgment, relationships, and choices made in private that shape public results. The Thailand race provided the trigger. The brothers' handshake provided the blueprint. As both riders look ahead, the season stands as proof that fierce competition and brotherly respect can, when managed wisely, fuel sporting greatness rather than tear it apart. Thanks for watching ZNGP Today, and this is your MotoGP news update. And see you next time!